Hello, test. Test, hello. Okay, I gotta turn this off. Hello, greetings. Is anyone out there? Well, I was just gonna, well, um, hope everybody can hear me out there, okay? Everybody, one person or more. That might be, I don't know if people can listen to this, but, and not be show up in my concurrent viewers list. And sometimes that's been wrong in the past. But I guess the screen is the U.S. Space Force proposal that was made in 2019 in around April. And it was funded then in December of 2019 as part of the NDNA, the National Defense Authorization (AAA) Act. That so this is a Democrat that's proposing this to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Secretary of Defense, and on C-SPAN 3, and um, and that's who. And one of the things that he was saying was that that they know what they are doing, and that they know, and we know what they are doing, and that they know that we know what they are doing. Now, who's the they in that sentence, in that series of sentences, right? He was talking about the threat from space and how he wanted Americans to know about the threat from space. But they haven't known about it because it's been classified. And then he made sure at the end of the proposal to the Joint Chiefs of Staff that that he hoped that there would be whistleblower protection built into it, which to me means that he wants the ability to leak and the person not being persecuted or prosecuted for it. So that was arranged and set up, and why do they want to go out? By Trump wanting to hold back the stimulus package, he's also holding back the budget for the government. He's also holding back the Defense Authorization Act, and he's pardoning war criminals, right? And which is an interesting idea, right? That there's a war criminal. Isn't that like an oxymoron? Isn't a war criminal? I mean, if anybody that has any sense of civilization, and from the mind of Jesus, even though they might know it's not that it didn't come from the, well, they might think it came from someplace else, or Krishna or Buddha, or because they were all began by the next level according to Tiendo, and so. And so that's what the war in space is all about right now. That it's a war that's happening with the people, the countries in the United States, of course, China, Russia, But they're mostly in bed with one another. They don't want to shoot down one another's satellites because they'll get shot down. That's risky business. They don't want to lose their networks. So it doesn't make sense that they want the Space Force in order to combat China. However, they sure can, more easily drop something on China. But they don't want to do that. I don't think, because I don't know. It might come to that because they may stimulate it to happen, and just so they can take all that money and do with it what they want to develop their technologies. Because a lot of technologies they don't have that good technologies to actually be able to live in a city underground and circulate with other bases and underground cities around the planet. Potentially. I don't know if they've gone across the sea yet. VPBC123. Hey Sawyer, Merry Christmas. Hope you got my email. Also, friendly reminder to post that recording of Doe sometime. Oh, the full recording of Doe. Thank you for reminding me about that. Let's see. Well, actually, you can hear that on, I think what I have, or maybe I have more than that. All right, I'll look for it. Post a recording of Doe. But you can hear a lot more of it than you heard on the HBO Max on the Heaven's Gate podcast, which I think is still on iTunes. I think it's still free. I might be wrong about that. I don't know. But that certainly wouldn't be very hard for me to do. I can try to accomplish that, you all. But greetings, Jeff. Yes, we have 3 Christmas trees. And the 3 trimesters of growth. That's what I would call those. Towards the birthing process of the chrysalis development. It doesn't seem accidental that that word chrysalis sounds so much like Christing, right? And the word transfiguration in the New Testament is metamorphose, which sounds an awful lot like metamorphosis. Next level builds in all kinds of clues of where the truth is coming from and how it all interrelates. Tony Moreno, I haven't heard your name for quite a while. Where's the footage of Rio recording in the home prior to calling the police? Where's the footage of Rio recording in the home prior to calling the police? He called from a payphone, I thought. And I don't think I ever saw footage of him in the payphone. But he may have talked to them after that from his home when they got in touch with him. So I don't know about where that is. I don't have it that I'm aware of. So I don't know, Tony. But I mean, you can ask Mark and Sarah about it on the Heaven's Gate website. I would suggest that, and you can ask Carl Odie on his blog, or if you know his YouTube channel name. He might know. He would probably know better than I do, since he was a lot closer to that whole physically and mentally than I was when that was happening. So Tony says, I think I asked the question incorrectly. My apologies. No, that's fine. I'm not. I didn't find any fault with it. I hope I didn't come across that way. But prior to calling the police, yeah, I hope I didn't come across that way. But I appreciate your sentiment if something I said sounded that way. And we're acting like check partners right now, and in a sense of when we're not confident in what we say, uh, you know, or we think the person's misunderstanding, and we don't want to. Taking responsibility for our own actions in any miscommunication is always a good thing to, I think, is a way of the member of the next level. To never assume who's, because it's not like a fault involved when everybody wants the same thing. When everybody wants the same thing, then being corrected, you want to be corrected because you want to get on, be shown, where our behaviors don't match the ways of members of the next level above human. And the best way we can understand the ways of the members of the next level above human is to look at the requirements in the Heaven's Gate website called Major Offenses and Lesser Offenses, and the 17 Steps in particular, and then get familiar with the document that talks about the other classroom behaviors that aren't required now to move ahead as a goal to reach for, at our own pace, whatever that pace is. We decide the pace, so we decide how fast to grow. You can't grow too fast, but you can also, if you find yourself asking to grow as fast as possible, asking Tiendo, then if it becomes a little bit too much to handle, then you can ask if it be relieved a little bit, because they're gonna, I think, allow us to have more of the negative influences challenging us, because that helps build our strength by fighting them off. It's like a muscle that we're actually working that muscle. They called it that. And but let me get back to what Tony is saying here. Unrelated question. The home movies from the Heaven's Gate podcast that included the songs they were singing and the talent show, have you seen the footage in its entirety? No, I haven't. I haven't seen it all. Nancy Brown has that footage. and I asked her for it, and she promised Mark that she wouldn't give it to anybody. So Mark is the one to compel to release that to everybody instead of holding it back, because his lawyers are telling him he can make money by doing that. Or if he's not doing it, whatever reason would he have to hold it back? Human reasons. All the audio tapes, they shouldn't be held back either. But see, they're not in control. There's no sense, getting mad at them. But it makes me mad every time this comes up, in a sense. But then at the same time, we have to trust that. I mean, literally, we have to trust that we have everything we need. We can get off on a tangent of thinking we've got to really mount this effort to, and complain about it, and send them, emails that are, putting them down or challenging them in some way, because I know that the next level, if they want us to have more, they will put it in their hearts to let it go. And I've already seen the evidence of that. I've been asking the next level a lot, not so recently, if I should do something, like start a lawsuit or something, to try to get those materials released. And I kept on thinking that, I never felt like they were approving of that. I didn't feel like they told me not to. So I don't think that would be wrong for somebody. However, I know I can't talk about something, but I have a sense that they are doing something to release them in a safe, and maybe, who knows, and I shouldn't try to judge why or how they're doing it. But I believe they gave them to somebody else, let me put it that way, a former student. And I don't only believe that, I know that because I talked to that former student. In terms of the audio tapes. Now, I don't know about the videotape that you're asking about, if it's in that batch of things that this other former student got from Mark and Sarah. I should have told Carlin this the other day. I was talking with him over email. I'll send him an email message. I was still holding back on telling anybody about it. I was trying to honor that former student, and so I'm not going to give the name of that former student, but it is important information, in my opinion, and it does show me that the next level is going to provide that to us at some point, I suspect. But maybe not to me. Maybe he'll do it in a side way of doing it, because Mark had a problem with providing those materials to Carlin and I. Carl Lodi and I. So, so Jeff says, I got 2 copies of UFO Missionaries Extraordinary book. They both have a full color ad for cigarettes in them? You're kidding. Holy smokes, really? Mine doesn't have that. Is it the same cover? Let me see if I hold up my cover. If you can verify. I don't know if you can see it on your phone if you're watching this on the phone. And then the back side is a whole bunch of verbiage. I was trying to leave it up there in case you could read it. But, yeah, I'd like to have that book digitized. You know, as pages or, you know, even typed up. It's really good for searching if it's in text format or some, you know, formats that are easy to search through. And works with all different word processors. Jeff says, what else? Are they Lucky Strike cigarettes? Tony Moreno says, I like your point that if the next level deems it necessary for us, it'll happen. Yep. It's the way it works. We can trust them that they provided us everything we need. Looks the same. I'll send pics of the ads later. Okay, cool. All right, so let's see, what else? I mean, and well, I could go into any different direction. I'll just look at some of my notes here from the past. I don't think I ever mentioned a little bit interesting things, little tidbits. Like one is like the way that the name of the comet, Hale Bopp, is like saying Hale B-O-O-P, right? Or like Bo as B-O, you know, because dough was originally B-O. I never said it that way before, but I certainly don't mean that in terms of the, you know, body odor thing. But that's what it sounded like. You know, I could hear people hearing that and thinking, oh, really? That's weird. No, but it was Bo as off of Bo and Peep. And so the P is like the beginning of the Peep. Bop. Right? I guess you all got that already. I don't need to explain it more than that. But, and then also that the lightning coming from east to west was like the Hale-Bopp comet. That's the light that Jesus talked about would be a sign. And then also Jesus came out of the tomb and he said hail to somebody, to a woman, I think. Aha. Hail to a woman. Mary Magdalene, was it, I think? Maybe. And there were like 3 Marys. And so that's what the comet was doing. It was hailing us, saying hello, and, you know, saying, this is it. We're here. We're bringing on the end of the world. The tribulation time that the Christians talked about. That's talked about in Revelation 13 and 12 and 11 and 14. and 16 and 17 and 18 and 19. Yeah, and then there's the other little note here I've got that's about Mark Twain. There's a whole bunch of little tidbit thoughts and ideas I got when I was writing the book, and when I was looking for that, that $5.75 that some of them had on them, was interesting. At least that's what I heard about first, in terms of, I think I heard a roll of quarters from somebody, and somebody else from, I don't know. Yeah, well, somebody had $10. I think Ben said that there was like $10 and some change on Sorority's vehicle or something like that. I think it was, if I remember correctly. But the 575 is what I knew about first, and I had been reading about Mark Twain because of the time frame. And the things that he would say, that he was like, the religious didn't like him, so he was always trying. He was always, he was like a playwright, and he made a movie with Thomas Edison. It was called Captain Stormfield's Trip to Heaven, and Stormfield was known to be where he lived in Connecticut. He called it Stormfield, and he said that. He came in with Comet Halley, and he would leave with Comet Halley, and he did. He left a couple of days, I think, before perihelion. Literally, a few days. I think in single digits before or right after perihelion of the return of Halley's Comet, which was every 78 years. According to the science. Although, the next level could probably make two identical, kind of orbits. So it could be a different actual body coming each time, at the same time. But, And Mark Twain, the name he suggested, he took was, Samuel Clemens was his name, and Twain has to do with two, right? And Mark has to do with like being a marker. Like Tiendo said that, well, Doe and Cruz said that the Hale-Bopp comet wasn't, wow. It wasn't the reason they left. It was and why they left. It wasn't why they left, but it was the marker of when to leave, which lined up with the Passover, lined up with the solstice, which the solstices of each year, of each month, and the equinoxes are all considered heightened times, according to T, when the next level is giving us medicine. And medicine comes as difficulties, calamities, floods. We might have some serious floods here in Vermont because of getting 3 foot of snow dumped on us, and then it was in the 50s. It's even in the 50s right now. And it's raining. And so, anyway, so back to Mark Twain. So he's the marker too, right? The mark of the two is one way to look at that name. And he was a riverboat captain, not Samuel Clemens was. I guess that's what gave him a lot of time to do his writing and thinking or whatever. And so I was looking up words all the time for the meaning of words. So I was curious. I was looking up the word Texas and what it meant, and in Spanish or Mexican, it's Tejas or Tejas. Maybe you say it the same way as Texas. I don't know, but and the riverboat, the quarters on the top of the riverboat, or the captain's quarters, that was actually called the Texas. Excuse me. The Texas deck. I wonder who brought that on. And Doe considered himself to be a captain in the next level, and he said that he was like an admiral, and that he was also a chief administrator of the earth. And and that an archangel is a captain of angels, a captain of members of the next level, a crew captain on a spacecraft, or many spacecrafts, a fleet of spacecrafts. Excuse me. And let's see, what else on that? So Michael the Archangel was the individual that related to Daniel. And Daniel got a lot of information about the two coming. The two people, the Ancient of Days and somebody else. So I guess the Father and the Son. T and Do. And a number of things in the book of Daniel correspond with the book of Revelations. Like the beasts, the 4 beasts that now are called the G7 and the G10. But that was 4 periods of time of the beast development. What was that, like? I wonder if that's like 40 years. From the same time as maybe as the crashes happened in 1947. I don't know. Doesn't have to correspond like that. I was trying to put things together. I spent weeks trying to put things together in history and time with numbers, and to try to see patterns with the 7 angels with the trumpets, and I think I got some things right. But I finally settled on a range of time, and I think that's when I became the most accurate. So I didn't try to get it into sequels of 10 or 7 or 40 all those numbers that are relevant to the book of Revelation and other things throughout the record books, those record books. And so, what he said in the movie that Mark Twain made, with Edison doing the filming, and I got that film one time, and I downloaded it, and I don't know how to find it now. So real short, it's like about 20 seconds or 30 seconds or something like that. And it is digitized somewhere because I downloaded it, but I lost that computer hard drive crashed on me, so I don't have it now. But in the movie, in the script, he said that the price of riding the tail of the comet to heaven was $5.75. And so when I was first asked about that, if there was any significance to that number, I told them that at first in the classroom, when we started going out, like for jobs, so that we might need to call back and we might not, be near a phone, so a pay phone, everybody signed out 75 cents. I remembered that. And at least I thought I remembered it that way. And I know that's what I told people. I could have misremembered that. But then I do remember also that after, I don't know if it was after T left or before T left, I can't remember clearly. I think it was maybe before she left. They gave us $5, and I think there was still 75 cents in the envelopes, so that we would have change in case we needed change, even though the price of a phone call had gone up from a dime to a lot of payphones had a quarter. Was for a 3-minute call locally. And so I wouldn't be surprised if some of the students had that money on them because, Doe said, if you want to, you can do that. I'm sure they asked him every detail about what he wanted to do. I'm not trying to second guess, though. He could have said, he could have found that, for all I know, and said, why don't you? But I don't know. It's just I don't get a. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think Doe kind of said, my opinion would be that he would. Well, no sense going there any further, but. That's confusion I'm adding with my mind when I do that. Trying to second guess Doe when it doesn't have a real direction. And even, which I tried to express when I find myself doing that. But you never can tell when I can miss it. So if anybody ever, anything I say you really think is questionable, whether it came from Tiendo's mind, then ask me about it. And if you have a sense of why, that might help too. Because you might help me open my eyes a little further into seeing it in a way that I didn't even see it from before. Because that happens all the time with re-listening to the audio tapes and the videotapes, all of it. Rereading the things in the book or the Beyond Human series. Anything else about Mark Twain? Oh, that he was measuring also. And that's what it said in Revelation, right? I want to go to this Revelation thing a little bit here. If I may. There it is. First, I'll go to the chat room. VPBC says, did you usually only address him as Doe? Yes, but in notes, well, on the outside of the note, we would say links, LNKS. When it was Tiendo, we did that when it was Tiendo getting the notes together. And then I don't remember if I actually, inside a note, if I said Doe, comma, and then, started to write. But I don't know what other people did. But I didn't say hello or anything every time I wrote a note to him. Or how are you? We didn't do that. We didn't do those kind of things with one another. Actually, the closest we got to that was when they sent us back on a to visit the families in 1985 while T was in her vehicle, and then after T left her vehicle, Doe sent us back with other students that were going to the same area, so that people in our vehicles' families, could meet other students and see what they were like. And so Alodi and Junodi got to meet with my vehicle's mom and dad, and maybe my vehicle's brother and sister. I don't remember clearly now if they were there. And I got to meet with Junodi's mother, I believe, and with Alodi's sister, who was Andodi's cousin, Frank's cousin. I met with her with Frank. I guess Frank arranged it. So let's see. I got way off the track of what you were talking about there, and that. Then Jeff says Destody had a pocket knife, according to the medical examiner. Okay. That wasn't like a standard thing to have in our pockets while I was in the classroom. But you can imagine that Doe was covering his bases, and he might have been even asking students for ideas on how to cover his bases in case T took their vehicles and gave them another task. then they might have a few sensible things with them, a little bit of money, a change of clothing, the passports, an ID, and which of course was, they wanted to be identified, the vehicles, anyway, even if they weren't left behind. But all those things could, if T could use them in some way, which Next Level does that. They will have members of the Next Level actually walking around among us, wearing clothes. I'm not saying in the cities, and it's happening many times. We're at the hospitals, and but not in vehicles that we can see. They're doing that a lot. He said they work closely with the hospitals. Now, I don't know if they can do a lot of that remotely, or taking spirits, to helping them cross over. I don't know, what kind of help they need or don't, or if they can be saved for future opportunity right from that spot. Because the way we're judged is by what we do and think and in our lives. What we come to believe is what we judge ourselves with. What we believe, we become what we believe. And that can become, that can be a Republican, that can be a Democrat, that can be a liberal or conservative, that can be everything in between, and to the left and the right of both of those, and and everything, everything in the world, all the departments of life, scientists, raising families, children, bus driver, whatever it is, the arts, the religions, all those things combined. We can all have little pieces of those things, right? That we do that are participatory in those ways, and people that are in prison shouldn't leave out people that are in prison. In fact, a lot of times they're showing some of the biggest signs of being not feeling they fit in here. And making mistakes. But that can still be a path to the top of the mountain. Because it's not the first time that these vehicles have gone through making mistakes and doing things that are difficult, or or suffering some hardships. And people pull together more on the grassroots levels and help one another. And the people that are doing that, are being humanitarian, it's all good. It's not, more or less good. But once we know about T and Do, then the best we can do is to choose to grow in their direction. I believe that, and I believe Do is very clear about that. Without meaning that, without defining what that means actually, because we can go in that direction while we're fighting that direction, because that's part of what we have to deal with. Some of us have to deal with in the human kingdom. And the people that have to go through that aren't any further ahead or behind somebody that is having a hard time with dealing with their sexuality or their shyness or they're not wanting to appear like they're religious, because you can't be standing up for tea and dough without appearing to be religious to many people. I have a problem with that. I don't like to appear to be religious. And that keeps me from talking about religion a lot of times. But I got to do it. I got to push myself to do it, because there's a lot of people that were prepared to hear the truth. And the reason they left the church is because they weren't hearing the truth anymore. They were just hearing the old truth and the distortion of it, no less. In a lot of times. I mean, I'm not saying in all times for all people. I'm not the judge of all those people. Because everybody's got their degrees of lesson plan, or their bag of, or their notes on the piano roll that they need to learn to play in a next level way. Rhymy, simey, nimey. That's not from T and Doe's. They're saying. They had a lot of sayings that were unusual. Like, I was reminded the other day that Montgomery wards, I think Doe used to call it monkey wards. So it's monkey wardrobe. Because they also used to call humans minkies. Is that fancier than monkeys? Because you got a nicer coat. Well, our vehicles are plants. And he wasn't putting anybody down by saying that, but they are down. They're not the same as, but they don't get hurt by a human knowing that an animal is lesser than them. They love any attention from a human. Most of them, the ones that are domesticatable, I think. And that's the way it's meant to be, so that they can move up. Even though humans act like animals, worse than civilized dogs, but they do it in a proper way, right? They use bombs and manipulation and deceit and murder, and the government's pretty despicable. That's all normal for them, to have war and for humans to be collateral damage, soldiers, collateral damage. And they brainwash you to think that that's an honorable thing to do. Now, I do believe that the next level does see service and being willing to give our lives in service to others as a noble next level cause. And Jesus taught that the greatest love that you can show for your fellow human is to be willing to lay down your life for them. And that's to love your neighbor as yourself. Because but we have to, we have to work into that. The same way we need to work into all the behaviors of the members of the next level. It's all a process of programming the vehicle to do it. Like, for instance, even things like, closing the doors quietly and walking up steps without clomping. Those are the kind of things that I had was slow to do well, the climbing up the stairs or walking around the house. Okay, I went way off on that. So let me see if there's something else here that's. Yeah, I'll probably eventually. Well, see, as far as I know, I'm not interfered with in the existing media that I'm a part of. So as long as I can continue to do these things, I won't be looking for other avenues. But okay, so right now it's like we're in a little bit of a break time, right? But with the next level is bringing the weather on us. And, it was something that I was observing, and I'm not sure I got it right. But it really seemed like, at least in the Northeast, where I am, we got we saw sunspots, and maybe a week later, or even less than that, we had a heat spell. It had gone down to even 0, I think, before that, or maybe that was the second time where it went down to. Well, no, maybe it was in the single digits for a day. It wasn't even more than that. And then the tens and 20s for a couple days, but then then there was another bunch of sunspots, and then another one of those, a week-long period of warmth. Like the first one had a week-long period of warmth, like in the 50s. I think it even hit 60 for the second one. And then recently, we saw like a cavern open up in the sun. And some sunspots, solar flares, and then it wasn't long after that we got dumped on 3 feet of snow. A lot of places got dumped on like that. I don't know how far south it went, but and now we got this. I don't know if there was a sunspot related to this. I haven't seen that report yet, but now this melt off after we had a series of bunch of days in the 20s at night, which is like a normal winter time for normal relative. This is more like well, I don't know. It's a mix now. It's like it's a. Someone showed me the other day. I think it was Kathy Southwestern actually. Hi there. I see her in the chat room. But showed me that there was some different those different bands of electromagnetic field around the Earth, and they think that one of those bands is produced by humans, if I got it right, and I don't doubt that, and and how that affects the weather, I don't know, but I know that the CO2 isn't in that band. They're in the troposphere, I believe, which is right above the stratosphere. Is that right? I might got that wrong. I might get that upside down. But it's like the second layer, I think, right? In case that was part of why you brought that up, as if what, but see that now. Now I might be wrong though about that frequency band, whether that does block some of the solar wind or not. I know the cosmic rays, the solar wind blocks the cosmic rays. So I don't know if that output from humans blocks the solar wind or the cosmic rays. I just can't imagine that the next level would work against themselves by letting humans do too much, to change too much about the climate when they were going to use climate as a major show of their authority, their, what they can do, to show us who's in control so that we can grow a little bit out of our comfortable human lives, that some of us have. I mean, I'm not saying we don't have a lot of problems, and some can be even hungry all the time, but they can still be thriving towards next level. Wanting to be closer to the next level in their own ways, separating from the world. So that's the value that you get out of having a draconian government clamping down on people and locking them up, and which is happening. They don't have to lock us up; they can just keep us in our homes, right? And then we can't, we won't be gathering in groups, and we won't, cause any problems with the society, like by civil unrest, or blocking commerce and stuff like that, or to protest certain things. But if the Bidens are actually the ones that are in power, the Bidens and the Harrises, although they really are just the puppets, no question about that, and they're going to do what they're told, and by the Clintons and the Bushes and others, and I can't predict the future. I mean, if Trump stayed in power, then some people think that Antifa is going to go crazy again. Notice how there were recently some killings of unarmed black men, and it didn't hardly make the news, the mainstream news. I didn't hear anything about it. I didn't hear about any protests or anything. They play everything. They play it all. The mainstream media is very little of value on that media. I mean, yeah, you can get, the headlines, but most of it is spent up, on boosting their image of being correct, being right, being just about COVID, about global warming, about vaccinations, about Uh, you know, but in terms of for the people, forget about it. The people aren't going to get anything better from them. Well, even if they get UBI, you're going to have to pay for it somehow. You're going to have to, you're going to get a social score. And so as long as you play along, you might be able to get it. And I say if you can get it, get it. You know. Especially if it helps you live and stand up for T and O. But see, once the government's paying for us for food and everything, then we can't speak out against anything because somebody will turn us in and they'll just take away our benefits. And so that keeps people quiet. But I'm not actually encouraging. I don't feel like that's the route to take of protesting the government. I mean, if somebody feels it, I'm not saying it's wrong to take. I shouldn't have any judgment about it, really. Everybody does what they feel is right, and that's right. And a lot of benefits can come out of meeting people that are protesting. Even standing up for T and O, because instead of the way the mainstream media reports the events that were happening in Kenosha at night was that it was a racial protest. When at night, it was like anything but. I mean, they were lighting dumpsters on fire, and they were pushing one towards a gas station right before, and some of the what I think were right wingers they brought what do you call it? Fire extinguishers, and I saw the video images of them putting those dumpster fires out. And apparently, people that started those fires and were pushing it towards that gas station, those are some of the people that ended up chasing after Kyle Rittenhouse, and I think threatening to beat him up or whatever, And since he had that gun and he knew how to use it, he used it. I don't justify that. Because violence isn't part of the next level. To even go there with a gun is a bad idea. If you're going to go there to help, then go there, take your chances without a gun. But he was raised with guns as normal, so, and there were people there that had guns, they had guns, and that was shown in a lot of different demonstrations to be the case. So, so trying to be objective about Kyle Rittenhouse, he's in a, it's not an unforgivable place to be at in terms of the next level. So that's the next level, is to judge him. But whether any way around it, he's gonna have a lot to pay in that regard, because there's gonna be people that are gonna hate him. Okay. Yet the people that were attacking him, weren't necessarily any better. but they were attacking him because he shot somebody. So to me, to try to disarm him would have been a good thing to do. Maybe that's what they were doing. So, those folks were, being like heroes, right? So I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's such a mess. It's such a mess. And there's been 4 or 5, or 6 or 7 or more people that had to be hospitalized because of in England and in Illinois and in Alaska and another place where one person fainted during a press conference 10 minutes after she took the vaccination. I never heard about. I think she recovered from it. I think there were some deaths in England. Collateral damage. The good of the whole, right? See, when that's forced on you, that's communism. When you're forced to live communally. Because if the government had next level mind in them, the people at the top, then of course, some of them have some next level mind in them, because it's even in the genetic code. But to the degree that they're judged is up to the next level, not us. But it was funny to me. I was laughing, and my daughter asked me why I was laughing, and I said, well, they had gone back and forth with this second stimulus check, right? And had several names, the bill did, over months and months and months. And at one point, Trump wanted double the money that the Democrats wanted. And then they changed and went back and forth, and they settled on what we just saw, that was the $900 billion, right? And then Trump just said, as you all probably know, that he wants to send $2,000 to every person instead of $600, and other things involved. He doesn't want Facebook to be unaccountable for what they ban and what they say, and I think that's right. I think they should be accountable, because they're not just a media organization anymore. They're a propaganda operation as well. That was clear when they put lockboxes all over that were like 200 yards apart in this one area that was heavily Democratic. They were making it so easy to go to the ballot box, and also you could actually you could stuff ballots in those boxes. How hard is it to stuff ballots in a box? Like in Nevada, they had like 3,000 or so dead people vote, and they had a whole bunch of people that had moved, that voted in Nevada, and when they had moved out of Nevada, And then there's a fear now that there's a whole bunch of people from California moving to Georgia. Now, I think maybe the vote's over now. But ahead of the Georgia votes on the recall vote, so that they could have a residence in and vote in the primary, or not the primary, the recount for the Senate seats. And there's judges, I began to see those judges that were, throwing out everything that was brought to them. And there was mountains of evidence, from all those affidavits. I watched the hours and hours of that, of like 4 different states on YouTube. And they got none of them to hear any of it. Even the 6,000 votes that were flipped from from Trump to Biden, that they said was a glitch in that software of that voting machine. And it's like, holy smokes. What kind of voting machine can do something like that? A glitch. I mean, do you have the option to just like say, I want all these votes to go? Sure, you could do that with software real easily. It's nothing to do that. You can select how many votes. They can have a back door to everything. So that wasn't grounds for, doing an audit of all the machines. They were only allowed to do an audit of that one machine, and they found evidence in that audit of that the machines weren't right. They weren't working right. They could have been set up that if it was a Trump vote, to reject it because of, having a high standard of what to reject it by. Maybe not enough ink. Or they could have a whole list of things that they could have rejected the vote because of seeing, that it was a Trump who voted. And, like the size of the blacking out of the circle or the type of ink that was used. It can detect those kind of things. And then it goes to an adjudication person, who then actually makes a duplicate ballot to run it through again. Tries to fix the problem. In other words, tries to figure out what the voter intended. How hard would it be so no wonder why they didn't want anybody watching them too closely. I mean, all that. There's so many. This is like a 9/11 thing. There's so many things that don't make any sense to say that there was no evidence of fraud. So there's like I said before, there's some that are saying that January 8th is a big event, I think, because that's when the Senate can actually step in, and it's one person per state, not the Senate, the House actually votes on Biden, and it's one person per state, even though some states have a lot more representatives. So it doesn't work that way. So, and the Republicans have the advantage in that regard. Now, if something like that happens, I'm not sure what would happen in the world. I know. The streets may fill up again with burning, because of a racial thing or whatever it is. they might want to give them that avenue of getting back at the right, because they would know that the right would be there at those demonstrations. And so basically you'd have reason for a civil war happening, and then you could declare martial law, and then Trump would be seen as a complete dictator, and and that those Antifa people that were picking up arms, would be seen as patriots by them on the left, and as terrorists on the right. Which Trump would then, like there's some talk that he will hold some military tribunals because of all the things that were done by the states that were wrong, that were actually against the technical constitution of what it takes to change an election. Criteria, different characteristics of the election takes, the legislature is responsible for that, not the governor. And so, if the legislature is not ready to do it, then he can theoretically he can say, we're going to have military tribunals where the judges that are going to be investigated that voted not to look at this material. And we're going to look at all the different things that were reported. And that Biden's not going to hold office during that time. So, okay, if Trump is out, then they're going to be out, all the right-wingers are going to have that much more reason to distrust the government, which already many do. Most do, I think. I think the vast majority of the people don't trust the government. I think the vast majority of the people don't think these lockdowns are justified now, and believe there are conspiracies around all this. That's my feeling about it. I don't know. I could be wrong. I know some don't know either way. A lot of people don't know either way. But like the Chinese, if you ask them about, the corruption in their government, they'll probably tell you, well, we don't talk about that. Or we talk about it, but, we don't print it out anywhere. We don't write it on the walls or anything, like in Tiananmen Square, where they came down and with their tanks and everything and killed a bunch of people, and that's the end of that. So, see, I was like kind of, well, never mind, but about that. But so I know I'm just being trying to be like another talking head, right? Giving this forecast when it doesn't make any difference, because it's going to be tough times no matter what. There's no question about that. And if it's not through what the government does, and it's going to be through the environment. Like the wind's blowing pretty hard out there right now. Nobody's gonna, not experience some of that. And the thing about Mark Twain that I was talking about before that I didn't really complete as well as I could have was all the clues to like his being a soul that the next level maybe sent a student to do that task, kind of like a John the Baptist is the way I think about it, and how he came about. He came public. The Aurora crash was in 1897, and the movie that Samuel Clemens made, riding the tail of a comet to heaven, for the price of $5.75. I think it was developed in 1914, like right around the beginning of the World War One, maybe, or during it, right around that time in the teens, I believe, when Halley's Comet came around. But so World War One might have been the response of the lower forces because they said when the next level came, Tiendo said that all life forms were accelerated because a light was shining on this planet from the distant heavens that hadn't been here since 2,000 years ago, and maybe even to a different, even a stronger degree now because tea was coming back in the 1920s, right? And then you had the Roaring Twenties, to where people were totally into party mode, and that and the police were trying to crack down on the people with the alcohol and the drugs, which was kind of like the Christians trying to control the people. And then in the 30s, you had the Dust Bowl. It was so hot. It was just like all the topsoil. They had terrible years for growing in the Midwest of the United States because of the loss of topsoil for such big areas of farming. So. And so you had major drought, right? And then it went back to flooding. In the 70s, 1970s, we had major flooding in the Mississippi Delta area. I remember I was in the classroom at the time. Maybe it was the early 80s. I remember seeing, huge amounts of around the Mississippi River totally flooded out. But so there's always with each of these major events can be linked to the seven angels delivering their trumpet soundings. A sounding has to do with a reverberation. And that's basically, the sound waves are communication. It's communication of the next level's presence. And they can even be their thoughts are even more available to us. And so inventions and continue. And so a lot of the inventions started right at the turn of the 19th century, or the 20th century, right? 1900 is the 20th century. So, And that's when that big event in Tecumseh happened. Not Tecumseh. Tecumseh was early in the 1800s, which was a big start, I think, with also John, what's his name? Smith, Joseph Smith's uh, let's see, and well, no, that big event over in Russia, in Siberia. What was it called? Tunguska, where some kind of meteor or a comet or something made it flattened a whole bunch of trees for hundreds of miles around. Laid them down. Interesting how, I wonder if they were laid down in the same way that uh, those those blades of wheat were laid down for crop circles. I suspect that was space aliens doing that. And also maybe some humans testing some kind of spacecrafts that they were making. And or even drones. I imagine you could get a drone to program it to do that. But let's see, what else? Well, let me go to the chat room. I didn't follow through though in this. I was going to go to someplace in Revelation. Oh yeah, I was going to go to Revelation 11. Let me do that. At least I'll put it on the screen. Let's see. Let me go to the chat room though for a second here, in case there's something that. Hi, Cub Doggy and Kathy Southwestern. Good evening. Hey everyone. Oh. Jeff, my copy of UFO Missionaries has that ad as well. Oh, is that right? Jeff says, okay, I was surprised they didn't do their homework on a target audience, obviously. Oh yeah, they do their homework on the cigarette ad, huh? And Kathy Southwestern says, Sawyer, is it snowing there? We've got snow for Christmas Day here. Yipes. No, well, no, not yet. I don't think. But I don't know right this minute. But it's like 50 degrees out there, and it's been raining and melting fast because we had 3 foot of snow that was melting. And I shoveled it. I spent 3 days shoveling. 3 8-hour days. I'm not trying to say that it was that hard. It just took a lot of time and a lot of sweat, but it's good for me. I'm glad I can do it still. There's a light snow. That was a good thing about that. But the wind's howling pretty strong, and it's supposed to turn to snow sometime tomorrow, sometime later, tonight I think even. Yeah, I like the snow, but 3 feet was a bit much. I like it once I'm dug out. Maybe you like the snow sports. I don't do any of that anymore. And my daughter doesn't seem to be gravitating to it, even though she did it growing up here. When I used to build pathways, like, for bobsledding kind of thing, because I live on the side of a mountain. So I had a natural slope. You got quite a bit of run, quite a good run. You could actually run it all the way to town if you wanted to. Which is a mile. But then you'd be on the highway, but that they keep plowed and salted, so uh, you don't have that much time where you can do that. Jeff says the person who fainted had a previous medical condition which makes her faint. Oh, is that right? I don't doubt that. That's what probably would happen to me because I have that condition. I have vertigo. But I mean, the Chicago hospital closed down their COVID inoculation program because of 4 people that one went into anaphylactic shock, had to be hospitalized for a number of days. I don't know how that person's doing now. And 3 other people had serious side effects that they related to an allergy, and they think that allergy had to do with that petroleum product. I forgot what you call it. That's used in both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccinations, and that there's a paper's been written on that show that they were toxic. And I saw a video of Fauci getting that inoculation in his left arm, right? And talking about it and pointing to his right arm. Well, he was talking about how it only was sore for a little while, a day or two or something like that. Do you think he forgot which arm he got inoculated in? Or did he skip it? They have those retractable needles. This vaccination hasn't gone through the kind of testing that even all the other ones in the past have gone through. They skipped animal testing, which has to do with which can mean a lot. Yeah, Jeff, that's what they said. Yes, I know what you're saying. I mean, yeah, the mainstream media has an answer for everything. I mean, they're not going to let something go by, but are they reporting it in the mainstream media? I don't know. I haven't heard it. I don't even listen to it anymore, hardly, because of so little uh, of this kind of information that you get. But I follow Robert F. Kennedy's Children's Health Defense website. I think he's got a lot of sane things to say, and so he points out, that's how I learned about the 5 or 6 different people that, you know, that went into shock and anaphylactic kind of a shock condition that can lead to death. And they actually have a document talking about the use of that product because they use it as like a way of keeping the body from digesting it or something, or I'm not sure, assimilating it somehow or getting rid of it. I guess it slows down that process. But it's like it's related to the same kind of product, glycosol or something. Maybe not glycosol, but it's related to antifreeze being put into your body. You know how much antifreeze in the blood system amounts to a problem, and it can actually it can create tumors. You know, when people's arms get sore and they get a lump sometimes, you don't know whether that, you know, the further on that gets into the body, whether it's creating those same kind of lumps inside the body. And, you know, I found out, I also learned that Fauci in 2003 spoke very highly about chloroquine. And that hydrochloroquine is a weaker solution than just the straight chloroquine. And so, and there was evidence of that. I mean, they had a lot of cases of the use of it recommended in 2003 against SARS-CoV, which would have been CoV-1. And so for that to be only exposed now, is similar to the way that he was against masks at first, and then he said then when he was faced with that, he didn't volunteer this information. Notice that. But when he was faced with that, he said, well, that's because I didn't want them to sell out to the... But see, the people that are in the hospitals, they're buying things from medical supply stores, right? I mean, all you got to do is just tell the medical supply stores that they only sell them to the hospitals. They have that emergency justification for doing that. And even if you were going to tell the people that the masks were no good or they were stupid, why wouldn't you tell them that they can make masks? Which that came out, but why wouldn't you say that in the same sentence? Instead of lying and telling them that the masks are no good. So why should we trust anything that comes out of that person's mouth? And he takes vitamins. I mean, I think things are pretty upside down in terms of where the truth lies in many subjects. But I mean, the case count, as we know, anybody that studied it for months and months, I've studied this now 3 times. The RT-PCR test is the gold standard that they use. So they use these quick tests with the antigen test and antibody test, and maybe that's the same test. I can get mixed up with it now. But I know they got like 4, and they got this quick test. And they got all kinds of false positives and false negatives, and they say that, even if you're tested negative doesn't mean that you don't have it. It's like, even though it's been shown, this other doctor who was banned from Twitter showed that there was plenty of data to show that asynchronous transmission isn't nobody's getting sick from somebody that's asynchronously sick. It has the virus but doesn't have any symptoms showing. When the WHO said that a long time ago, they said it was rare. Yet they're still acting as if that's a problem with the lockdowns. The reason for the lockdowns is because of that. And the reason for the testing is because of that as well. Well, they originally said the testing was to see where the virus was going, not to tell who had it. Because you can see where it's going by, even though what they're testing for, see now they're playing up this thing that, where some people were reporting that there was no virus. They weren't saying that there wasn't this particle that was, hooking up to cells and destroying them, killing them. It wasn't saying that. It was saying that those are exosomes. And the exosomes are a natural response of the body to something that's toxic. And so, because they haven't actually isolated the virus. And they have to isolate, you can't make a culture. So somebody's not going to get sick and die from a virus that doesn't have enough virons to make a culture. And you don't have enough virons, according to the test, because the tests are amplifying the virons that they do find that have commonality with that strain that they got from the sample that's mixed with DNA. So it's confused from China originally that went to the WHO. You have to amplify using a type of fluorescent light and some enzymes in order to find a piece of the virus that then by amplifying it, it takes amplification to see it. So they don't actually know that they've got something until a certain amount of running this cycle, so that they can literally they're attaching some kind of phosphorescent, maybe radioactive something, I don't know, in order to actually literally be able to see it with a microscope, an electron microscope. And so they're running at 40 cycles when Fauci said that above like 35 or 36 cycles was useless to determining whether somebody had the virus. But they're using that as the case count. And so the case count goes up and up and up and up and up. And so that and the people have the same symptoms as the flu. So if they were testing for the flu, they might find the flu in addition to finding this one amplified viron in somebody. Okay, so because it's well known that in any given year, people have multiple viruses. That's not unusual. At the same time, one virus gets in you. If there's another virus, it's not going to not go in you because the other one got in there first. And so some people die from having a number of strains, even strains that they don't have names for. So, the science on all this, which I know a little bit about, just to the degree that I'm talking about now, and a little more than that. I mean, these are all things that make sense to me. And if I'm way off the track, because I don't know exactly how T and Do would think about it, but when you keep looking for the truth and keep seeing different things coming from different sources, that are substantiating things that you heard originally when before there was a chance of putting out much misinformation. In the beginning of these crises, like in the 9/11 event, I mean, these people were writing these big long timelines of every little thing that was happening that they could find that was being reported all over the country and all over the world. All these different juxtaposed pieces of information to describe, what was going on. You get a pretty good sense of things that don't make sense. And as people say, just fishy, to where you know that you can't trust anything they're telling you, is exactly what it is. I was hearing a radio show that was talking about the Roman Empire, and I had been wondering about the Roman Empire for a long time on how it broke up and what it looked like. And what I found out was that they were pretty much leaving all these different tribes and all these different countries alone to do their thing, unless they had a problem, and they would have their little business ventures going on, making money, with different groups of people. And if one of those countries, if there was some people that rose up against one of those communities and slaughtered a bunch of people, then they would go in there, and try to enforce their rule with troops, to keep order. And then there would be, troops that would be defecting, and so, calling it an empire, it wasn't really tight the same way that we got the G7, G10 empire, the one world government that is trying to get more and more control over everybody, justifying it by saving the planet and saving themselves from climate change and from space aliens and from, of course, that's not talked about much out loud, but and from the people of God, because they look at people that are religious, especially Christians, as stupid, uninformed, unscientific. Not seeing reality, anti-science, which, it shows how little mind they have from the next level by having that judgment against people because they believe that there's a creator or creators, a kingdom, and that Jesus was their representative, the most recent one. Because he's the only one that talked about leaving the planet. In my Father's house are many mansions. I go to prepare a place for you so that you can be with me. And how he was anti-marriage for the future. Because like he said, those that are accounted worthy for that life, talking about the return, incarnation, and then the world to come, being the next level, neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels. In other words, the crew members, like the existing members of the next level. They don't have marriage in the next level. It's plain and simple as that. Your commitment is to your older member. That's your only commitment. You can commit to somebody else to help them commit to their older member, because that's what we were given one point to do. By Doe. Let me go back to the chat room. Happy holidays to you, Cinnamon Ruffles. Too fishy, yeah. Armed ASMR. Hope you're all having a fine day. Yes, so far so good. But, hold on to our hats. We can handle it if we look to the next level for help with everything that happens. Then Armed ASMR says, I wonder what happened to the movie I heard the classroom talk about. It was supposed to be based off of the teachings of T&O. Yes, that movie was. I don't want to go back to. I want to go back to Revelation a little bit, but. Well, as far as I know, Rio is still shopping it, and negotiating maybe with Sergio Myers. But I'm looking. I'm trying to look for well, I've got some help for creating a documentary to where I can be the director of it. Or not the director, but the producer, if you want to look at it that way, or consultant. And I wish I would know how to include other people that might want to do something, but maybe that could be done. Maybe I'll do this, or other. Maybe a number of us could that want to could try to do our own little documentary. I mean, giving true information. Not just telling the story, because the story's been told in terms of, what happened and what time and what date and how many people and all that. But, people can do what they want, of course. I'm not trying to say what. But if I'm going to give my opinion of the things that I wish could be covered better, I would want to talk about, how T was not a hypocrite at all. And Doe was following T's instructions to not tell Terry right away about her leaving her vehicle, because she didn't tell Terry about when she got cancer 2 years before that, and lost her, and her eye was removed surgically, and in a hospital, and how she cared about Terry, but for Terry's sake, not for her sake. She didn't want to get out. She was we've got 196 audio tapes that prove that T was fully committed to doing this task. So, I mean, but putting that out there, gives people that option to think that way if they want to. But see, that's I want to see that, broadcast, and, talking about standing up for T and O. I've written about this a lot, so I'll give people, put it in your own words or whatever, if it doesn't make sense to you, tell me why, so that I can see if there's other ways of approaching the perspectives that I observed, that I've tried to document. I mean, I haven't documented when the person that's working on a documentary now is from ABC, and they just asked me if I knew when, maybe even where we were when T had cancer, when we first diagnosed with cancer. And what I told her was I believe it was 1982, or possibly a little bit after that. Because I believe we were it might have been before or after Black Hawk, which is some of the first tapes that we have, were 1982. So it might have been 1983 even, I guess. Like I said, a little bit after 1982. But I believe we were living in Amarillo at the time. Because I think the meeting was held where T came to the meeting with a patch on her eye, was in the business that we had that was called Astrologics, where we did astrology charts for the public. And and Mark did stained glass windows by himself. He didn't have a check partner for that. I didn't have a check partner on the astrology I was doing. So, I mean, it's not like, I guess some tasks, I mean, he might have had somebody to run things by. Or maybe he just worked, well, Doe became his check partner then. And T. So it's not like they don't have it. He was not, I mean, you can be given a task by the next level to do something by yourself. That's what Jesus ended up doing. Even though John the Baptist seems to be one of the more advanced students. Like Aaron was to Moses. All the same soul according to T. Doe. As well as Elijah, Enoch, and Adam, to start off the experiment. Let's see what else on that. I get off the track, so excuse me. I don't think I'm equipped to do any more of those 5-hour ones. Even though I like being available that long for people in Europe and stuff that might want to connect. Let me follow that with not that anybody needs to connect with me, but I can imagine that if I was in the shoes of the individuals that want to know everything they can about Tiendo, and enjoy talking about it and hearing it talked about, I would be in the same place. I hope I would be. If I wasn't, I'd be something wrong with me. Well, I mean, something wrong with me meaning not like that person is bad or damaged or anything, but I would just hope that I would recognize the information enough to wanting to learn a lot about it before I would make any hasty decisions about whether it's from the true creators or not. Okay, so then Chris Paul says, was Doe originally from Houston? His vehicle was born in Spur, Texas. I went to Spur a couple of years ago, trying to get some footage for a documentary on the way to talking to the Academy of Religion in Denver, which came about as a result of the Heaven's Gate podcast and my relationship as with Ben Zeller, who invited me to go to that conference. Anyway, back to here. So, but Doe spent a large part of his career time before he met T. He was in Houston. He was living in Houston, and T was living in Corpus Christi, but she was commuting, I think, to work in Houston. That's where they met. Really interesting document for that is 88 Update. It's on the Heaven's Gate website. Like 88, like in 1988, but just says 88 and then Update, UFO 2 and their crew. You can just search for that and that corrects a lot of things that were said wrong about them. That's why Doe said he wrote it. The wind just knocked out BPC, knocked out your power. Holy smokes, really? Yeah, I guess that could happen here too. So far, so good. Knock on wood. Chris Paul says, I thought it was cool Doe and T were both from Houston, even though they met in different places. No, they met in Houston. But T was from Corpus Christi. And Doe originally was from Spur, and then at some point he moved to Corpus Christi, actually, and didn't know T though at that point. She was like 4 years older than he was in the vehicle, and then he went to high school in Corpus Christi, I think, for some of the years, and then he moved around the country with his wife and his kids. I don't know when the kids were actually born, but I think he had two kids, and tried to pursue his music career and his singing career in New York, but it didn't work out. And then teaching. Well, I don't need to go through all that. You will probably know that, those details far better than I do, even. So let me go back to Revelation 11 since I'm caught up in the chat room, I think. Excuse me. Yeah, I was talking about Mark Twain. I talked a lot about Mark Twain, all the similarities with comets, Hale-Bopp comet, and even the name Halley's Comet, which I forgot to mention, looks like Hale, in the beginning of it. Halley is Hale, E-Y. Anyway, so, but since he was a riverboat captain, and he lived on the captain's deck, which was the Texas deck, and since Doe was the captain and also the archangel Michael, I believe, and who battles with Lucifer in Revelation 12, where the woman is announced, who Doe said was T, and one of the only things he said about Bible verses at that time, while T was in her vehicle, and so one of the jobs of the captain was, or maybe not the captain, but what they had to do all the time in a riverboat was do a depth, check the depth so that you don't run aground and even break up the hull on rocks or something. So I wonder if that's like where it says in Revelation 11, and it was given me a reed like unto a rod. And the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. Now, I'm not saying that's the riverboat, but see, there's always like multiple ways of translating prophecy so that it works in different situations to where you could say, oh, look, that's fulfilling that prophecy in that way. And so in that way, because water was always considered to be, in the Bible, human people. And so measuring the temple of God would be measuring the people that are worshiping in the temple, because the temple is for the people. There's no temple of God without the people that are believers. The next level doesn't. The next level has their spacecrafts are their temples, and their vehicles are their temples, because it's through their vehicles that they serve the next level. That's why Jesus said that this temple will be built in 3 days, 3.5 days. Which also had its relationship to a period of time in the human kingdom, to where even the physical churches would be brought down through the wars that were going to happen after he left. And so the fourth temple that they keep on saying that they're waiting for to happen, or I think it is the fourth or the third, maybe it's the third, happened in the United States. The Western United States, I believe, is the temple. I think the Eastern United States, east of the Mississippi, is the courtyard. But now that doesn't apply, I don't believe, except to where the temple area is probably going to get the brunt of the recycling. And I think that's why California is having such a hard time with the coronavirus. Because pandemics was, or what do you call it? Pestilence and plagues, like Revelation 16:2. And just so happens to be New York and California that are having the worst time of it, right? I think pretty much. I may be wrong about that, but maybe Washington and Oregon as well. But see, these are the states that a lot of people don't actively think that they believe in God or the Christian God. They believe, a lot of them believe in the Buddhist God, and that's fine. But believing in the one true God, kingdom of God, isn't religious. It is for the people that don't know any better. And I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't honor that religious heritage that got us to where we are now. But we needed new terminology in order to see more of the reality of the next level. Because we need to be updated so that going into the next level, it's not a big leap in reality. Because we already know, we've been already prepared in our minds, because what we received in our minds, our spirit, ends up filling up from the next level, and when we put that into motion, we end up filling up our soul pocket. The soul body is actually growing, and actually literally growing, more dense, brighter, perhaps, maybe another way to describe it. A higher charge of energy, and the more we keep in our letting go of that, of the forms of sensuality that we have, whether it's angry outburst or whether it's sexuality, or whether it's the more we're potentially holding in our energy to be used in the further development of our mind, and our willpower is part of that. Keeping out the negativity and the things that would hold us back from overcoming these horses, because that's what they're like to the next level. They're like horses. They're like wild. But through the next level's teachings, they get corralled, and they accept it. And the ones that accept it end up being of service to the next level, to the rancher. The next level being the rancher. And end up feeling like they're part of the same family, because they become part of the same family. And that's the family that we all still have the opportunity to graft to. It is talked about it by Tiendo as a graft. And Jesus talked about it that way. So Christmas is the Christing process. The christening of growing closer to our older members by standing up for them and adopting their behaviors and ways. And in that way, we need our vehicles in order to do this task. So the vehicles can get stronger and stronger to be able to do these tasks, and do them even if we feel like the vehicles are threatened by it. I mean, maintaining the stand and accepting the consequences is what Junodi wrote in the away team document that's in the Heaven's Gate book. Because even losing these vehicles doesn't hurt the soul at all. The soul is not harmed one iota when its vehicle is dropped. All right, so let me go back to the chat room. The Hail I comment, okay? Well, it is like an eye in a sense. Looking at Tiendo said they felt like they were cameras for the next level, and they were honored to be that way, and they had set that up before they came, that's what would happen, so that they could use them, and their eyes included. Matthew 10:28. Gosh. My hand is like sprained. Maybe I've been eating too many junk foods. Armed ACMR. I can't say that I'm not nervous about losing the vehicle. Yeah, I understand that. I don't want to lose my vehicle. I'm more willing now than I ever was. Well, except when I was in the classroom, I was willing, but I was getting a lot of help to feel that way. See, now that I've got ties in the human kingdom, but I'm starting to feel like that's not that much of a target anymore. But because my vehicle's daughter is growing up, so she's already an adult, and so, but you can see that, she's continuing to come into our own in different ways. And when you get to my age, it's kind of easy, right? I mean, even though all of us are subject to exiting, you know, at any time, really, we really don't know. But you know, it doesn't like trigger you when you're young. I don't believe there's that many triggers unless there's a lot of death around us, and then people, you know, of course, get used to it. And we can get used to an awful lot, and not fear it, and you know, but not you know. But it's not. There's nothing wrong with, you know, wanting to continue to live, because we learn our lessons through these vehicles. So anybody that tries to make you feel guilty because you don't want to leave, that's their problem. You know, there probably will be people that believe in T&O that will, you know, say that, you know, this is the only way you can get to be with Do. And it's true that we can't cling to our humanness and cling to our lives when the next level is showing us that it might be time to leave, and that we, by standing up for them, it might come to that. But that doesn't mean that we want to, you know, go to one of these demonstrations that turn violent and put a soapbox up and getting a megaphone and telling everybody that, you know, if they don't believe in what we say, they're going to end up being recycled. You know what I mean? Like coming down on them, if they don't lay down their lives by their own hand, they're going to be recycled. They're not going to go with Do. You know, so there's no sense in following them, which, you know, that's what Mark and Sarah were telling people not too long ago, that that there's no point in because we're going to have to reincarnate anyway. So they're basically saying that belief alone is all that's needed, when it's not true at all. We need to work for the next level for them to give us another chance. And we're not the judge of, you know, I mean, how much we work for them is up to us, but it's not necessarily measured in, you know, amounts of people that we talk to. I mean, I'm not saying it. It's not. There's no numbers like that we can use. You know, that's what humans would do. We just, you know, when we feel led to talk to somebody, we talk to them. You know, they might say something that, you know, can be any kind of you can make it very hard on bringing something up. You know, in other words, so that it's very seldom that you bring anything up about T&O. But in terms of what I write now in comments and things, that's a good way to practice, by the way, if you haven't been doing it already. I almost always say something about, you know, this perspective or this, you know, idea. I put it in my own words, but I say, you know, came from those who were called T&O. Who I believe, I try to add, who I believe were the only true return of the second coming, what was called the second coming. Jesus and his Father. His father came in a female vehicle, uh, and was depicted in Revelation 12, and the two witnesses as the two witnesses in Revelation 11. And they had the power to bring plagues upon the planet. Now, I wouldn't say that part about the plagues because it might be too much for somebody to, somebody that thinks that's all a bunch of baloney. The more you say of it, the harder it's going to be for them to think that there may be some truth to it. Well, I don't know that's a fact. That might not be a fact. But I know that the more somebody hears something that they don't want to hear, at least for me, well, I don't know what to use that against. Well, we all have, I think, have the capacity to be blocking things that we don't think make any sense, that might make some sense, possibly, but maybe we just don't see it in the right way. Because I know people are dying. I mean, the numbers were supposed to increase, which talks about in Revelation 6:8, and then which I believe is the time period we're in right now, and maybe even a little bit after that. And also, the Doe said that might be the biggest thing that we see happening in the world that shows us that it's a time of great trouble, in preparation for the departure of the next level with the souls and spirits that can survive for future opportunity. And so I lost track of where I was, but I think that actually might have completed I can keep on dribbling off, right? I mean, because there's all these cross references to things, but I do hope the gate is still open. I believe the gate's still open. Doe didn't close it. So I don't think it's even like I could be wrong kind of thing. He gave many examples of why it's still open. VPBC 123. I don't know if I put them all together in one spot. I have, I think, in one of these live streams, but I don't know if I labeled it that way. So it's going to be awful hard to find. But you can just go through the Heaven's Gate book and look for, like, the word I want to say exit, but I don't know if there's any words that you can think are associated with the gate. Who could leave with him was another word. Leave. I searched for that. That's what's good about downloading the Heaven's Gate book from the Heaven's Gate website. you get it, it comes in text format. So, if you have any kind of a decent text editor, you can just, do a search on it, or your operating system can search it. But in order to see all the different perspectives that Doe gave students to give to us on the use of our vehicles in order to overcome and to be preparing for our own exits, however that happens. Doing so standing up for T and Doe. And that means like during that time that you're standing up for them doesn't necessarily mean, it can mean exactly when you are actually doing it in the process of that. Like let's say you are talking to somebody in the street and somebody doesn't like what you said. But I think we are to try to avoid violent circumstances. We don't want to put ourselves to the test, in other words. If those circumstances arrive, despite our effort to not be involved in any, well, so be it then. But certainly, when if somebody's asking the next level for help on whether they should go to this festival or go to this conference or or participate with this online, having in mind that if something comes up related to T and O, they might say something about them. And that's what we need our vehicles for at this point. Because doing all that builds our mind. Because we get, we want to know what we're talking about, right? So if we're talking to people, we want to know what T and O are saying about it. I don't, primarily you wouldn't, I don't think, say to people what Sawyer said. I wouldn't, you can say what you want, of course. I'm just saying that, my memory can fail me, and I could misapply some things. But I don't think I've done that in recently talking about in this live stream or other ones. I've kind of stopped myself when I think I get into an area where I'm not speaking clearly about, I guess. I don't know, or I'm speaking overconfidently about it. The thing that I feel like, even somebody that's in a total objection can be somebody that's actually a seeker. It may take them to go home, and maybe days and days before they actually repeat in their heads some of the things we might say to them that might be like very interesting to them. But we don't get any grades for how many people we talk to or end up helping to bring closer to looking at T and Do's mind more seriously, and even becoming a student. Then, Cinema Ruffles says, I don't know what that means, BENIS, :D. In BPBC 123, was everything written in the book done by Doe only? No. A large part of the book is written by all the crew members. The 38 I don't think everybody wrote something, but I never did that comparison to see. I don't think it was a requirement to write. Jeff says, I think several students wrote or transcribed parts of the book. Yeah, I don't know about transcribing parts of the book, but, well, yeah, Rick Cody did some of that, but Rick Cody also had some documents that weren't in the Heaven's Gate book. And if anybody wants any of that, I send it to people all the time. I'm due to send somebody that, I think, soon, because I think I put them off. I didn't put them off, but I have neglected them. So my address, email is SawyerHG, like a Heaven's Gate, at yahoo.com. If you want to get some packets, you just have to have space on your device. And tell me what the limit is for that, and I'll tell you whether what I can send to you. If you've got like a handheld kind of thing, I've got like close to 4 gigs in 2 files. Yes, we have a bunch of things that were transcribed from the book, and Jeff says I have a Ricordi Blue Book. Okay. Yeah, it's basically the same as the one that I call the Purple Book, because it's such a dark purple. I'm getting pretty worn out. So if there's nothing else happening in the chat room, I think I'm going to bring this to a close. I didn't go any further in the Revelation 11. You're welcome, Ahmad Asmer, Ahmed, and Jeff, thank you. Glad to have you all hanging in here and hearing what's on your minds. I didn't go to Matthew 10:28, did I? Okay, let me do that quick. Okay, so I'm going to read it. And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both the soul and body in hell. Okay, I see what you're saying, why you put that there. Right. Tiendo would say that, they would hope that if somebody was going to kill them, that they would shoot straight, so that they wouldn't end up, having a vehicle that's a vegetable. I don't know, what. I don't really understand why the next level couldn't just take them out of that vehicle, but I don't know, you know. But see, by telling us that, they kind of, you know, giving a strong indication there that everybody who's living isn't necessarily living. If they're basically a vegetable, and we've got a lot more people that are in that condition. Is trying to collect all the books about Heaven's Gate. Okay, that's a good idea. I mean, you know, why not if you can and you want to? All right, so I guess there's not too much more to say about that. Because he says, what I tell you in darkness, speak in the light. Preach upon the housetop. Getting myself a copy of Sawyer's book. Yeah, let me see. Let's see. When did you order it? Because I just sent out on Monday. I mailed out 3 books, but I didn't. I'm so shabby and slow on putting in the tracking number. But I'll do that because I understand some of them are very delayed. Some packages are delayed for like a week or two because there's so much mail that's being exchanged with people. All right. Hope this has been some of value to some of you. And look forward to the next time. Yeah, if somebody does want my book, it's under the on eBay. It's Tito Books. One word. So good night, folks.